Good morning to all and welcome to the session, the Hindu Editorial Analysis for Proficiency in English. Today's editorial is not that easy to comprehend. It is all about pharma industry. It is about intellectual property rights. It is about patenting. You have to read meticulously. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. Let us start the session with the question, what is this editorial about? This editorial discusses the ongoing negotiations. It is about negotiations between India and the European Free Trade Association, EFTA, for a free trade agreement with a particular focus on the contentious issue of intellectual property rights. As I said, this is all about IPR, intellectual property rights related to pharma industry. And there's one word here, contentious means something that is controversial. Contentious issue of IPR in the pharmaceutical industry. As I said at the outset, not that easy, you have to listen very carefully. What is the tone of the editorial? The tone of the editorial appears to be informative, analytical, and somewhat cautionary. The three words you have come across for the first time. Informative, it provides information about the pharma industry, intellectual property rights, and patenting. At the same time, analytical, obviously it has to be. And the third word, cautionary, a bit cautious. Let us see how it starts. Before we go to the editorial analysis, let us have a look at the words editorial vocabulary. And today's editorial, the writer has used a few idioms, and I use those idioms regularly. There are three or four idioms very important. Because it goes with pharma industry, some words may be new and a bit difficult to remember. You have to listen very carefully. What is the first word? The very first word, contentious. A bit difficult to remember. Contentious, part of speech adjective, causing or likely to cause an argument, controversial. As I said, contentious means what? Controversial, a controversial issue. And reliable, a simple word, adjective, dependable. Here you have to recollect a few phrasal verbs. First one, rely on. Second one, depend on. Third one, bank on. Count on. One more is there. When we say you can rely on something, you can bank on something, you can count on something, you can depend on something. All these are phrasal verbs, they mean the same. Close to fruition, I'm sorry. Close to fruition, part of speech idiom. An occasion when a plan or an idea begins to happen, exist, or be successful. Imagine you have a project, you have an idea that begins to become successful. Then we say close to fruition. And there's one more idiom I use regularly, bone of contention. Bone of contention, there's another idiomatic expression with the same meaning. What does it mean? What is that idiom? Apple of discord. Bone of contention, apple of discord, both mean the same. The subject of a disagreement or argument. You can also say bone of contention or apple of discord, cause of dispute. That's an important one. It has been given many a time. Let us go to the fifth one, persist. Persist is a verb, it is a regular verb. To continue to exist past the usual time. To continue to exist past the usual time. What does it mean? To continue to exist beyond the expected time. Past means beyond, past the usual time. Beyond the usual time, something exists. Then we say persist. One meaning. Another meaning, imagine someone faces a lot of problems. Still, the person continues. Then also you can say persisted. Underpin, we have got for the first time a familiar word. Otherwise, part of speech verb, support, justify, or form the basis for. In a way, underpin means support or justify. Part of speech verb. Generic, because it is about pharma industry. This is the most relevant word. It goes with lexical terms relating to or shared by a whole group of similar things. That means all the pharma industries, not specific to any particular thing, not specific to any particular company. Generic drugs, that is one combination you have to know. Affordability, affordable adjective, affordability noun. Ability to be afforded, inexpensiveness. Expensive, what is opposite? Inexpensive. I will write one expression, I cannot, short form, I can't afford to do that. I cannot, I can't afford to buy that. Both are entirely different. What is the difference? Imagine you want to buy a car, you don't have enough money. Then you say, I can't afford that car. Means what? I don't have enough money to buy that car. That usual meaning everyone knows. I cannot afford that car. But the other meaning, I cannot afford to do that. Imagine I work for a company and I want to talk against the management. If at all I do that, I may lose my job. Then I say, I can't afford to go against the management. I cannot afford to talk against the management. That's a different meaning altogether. Both you have to know. Usually it goes with money matters. Tussle, tussle, part of speech, noun. This goes with everyday English. To fight with another person using your arms and body. In this context, it does not mean that. Here it means a fight, an argument, a dispute, tussle. Don't take the literal meaning. Patenting, as I said, when we talk about drugs, inventions, we use terms like IPR. What do the letters stand for? Intellectual property rights. The other one, patenting, part of speech verb, to get the official legal right to make or sell an invention. Imagine someone invents something and he has exclusive right to make or produce or sell something that he has invented for some time, not forever. For some time, the person has exclusive right. Then we say he has patented something. Monopoly. Mono means one. Monopoly, part of speech noun. An organization, it goes with a business house, an organization or group that has complete control of something. If you take the market in the past, one particular company would get the lion's share of the market related to a particular product. Let us say a soap or a toothpaste. Only one company sells, it gets the lion's share, and other companies cannot survive. Then we say the company has monopoly over the market. But because in the modern times, if you take the modern economies, monopolistic practices are not allowed. Today, the market is very dynamic. Anyone, anytime can come up with a product and sell the product in the market, and everyone can survive provided the person has the expertise. Reciprocal goes with everyday English, part of speech adjective, given, felt, or done in return. When I give something to you, you return something, you give me back something, then I say you have reciprocated. An important word, though it goes with everyday English. Inveigle, I think we have got this. I've been doing for so long. This word we have got for the first time. What does it mean? Persuade someone to do something by means of deception or flattery. Deception comes from deceive, to cheat. And flattery, that's an important word. Flattery means false praise. Flattery. Part of speech noun. You tell someone you're the best person. You don't mean it. You want some work to be done. You want something from that person and you praise that person, which is not actually, you don't mean it. But to get the work done, you do that. Then we say Flattery. Flattery never fall for flattery. There's a saying in English. And here, inveigle, persuade someone to do something by means of deception, cheating, or flattery. You have to remember this, not easy. You got to be careful with spelling as well. Ethical, ethics means what? Values. Ethical, part of speech adjective, relating to moral principles or the branch of knowledge dealing with these. As I said, ethics means what? Values. Values, ethics, in a way, one and the same. Morals, also the same. The field that deals with ethics, and here ethical, adjective form. From scratch, the third idiom. I said today's editorial, there are three idioms. All the three are important, and this goes with I use regularly. When you start preparation for competitive exams, certain subjects you have to start from scratch. Means what? From the beginning, from the very beginning, especially without making use of or relying on any previous work for assistance. You start afresh. You start from the beginning. That is known as from scratch. And the last word, paradigm. G is silent, part of speech adjective. A typical example or pattern of something, a pattern or model. A typical example, for that we also use a word, epitome. Epitome of something, and model, role model, idol, all these words you have to recollect. These are the words from today's editorial. Let us go to the editorial and see how it starts. Brave New World. You cannot make out. On the India European Free Trade Association Agreement and IPR. There are two things over here. One is the agreement between India and the European Association, whatever, related to what? Intellectual property rights. But what is the main idea of this editorial? India must invest in fundamental research to be able to develop reliable drugs. Fundamental research, basic research. This here, there is one helping of must. What is the function of must? It is used to express a personal obligation or an obligation imposed by the speaker. Here, the editorial or the writer. India must invest in fundamental research. Why should India invest in fundamental research? To be able to develop reliable drugs. Reliable drugs, very important. Public health. Expectations are high. This is an important expression. Expectations are high. And sometimes we say expectations are high. Don't let us down. Don't let someone down. Means what? Don't disappoint that person because expectations are high. Expectations are high that a free trade agreement involving India and the European Free Trade Association EFTA is close to fruition, means about to become successful. The deal between the two, or the agreement between the two, one is India, the other one is EFTA, is close to fruition. Means what? Close to become successful. However, contrasting word, a bone of contention, apple of discord. What do they mean? Cause of dispute. However, a bone of contention relates to intellectual property rights. This is the actual problem. A bone of contention or an apple of discord relates to intellectual property rights and has persisted as an issue since 2008. Again, every day I say, whenever you come across since for, you have to think of two tenses. One is a present perfect, the other one is present perfect continuous. Here, since 2008, has a persisted. I said, persist, exist for more than the usual time. Since 2008 and 2024, long time. And based on that, here, present perfect has persisted as an issue since 2008. What is the basic problem over here? Intellectual property rights. Switzerland and Norway, both European countries, which are prominent members of EFTA, important members of EFTA, hosts several of the pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies that are responsible for several of the drugs and therapeutics that underpin healthcare globally, that support healthcare globally. Very good. I appreciate your response. Who is this Divya? Good. Keep responding. I told yesterday also, I tell every day, do remember there are two types of learners and listeners: active listeners, passive learners, passive listeners. Passive learning, passive listening is of no use. When you listen, I may know something, you may know something. When I tell a particular word, you know the synonym, do immediately try to respond. That way, what happens during a live session, you try to add words, word forms, word combinations, then you will be able to remember. That gives you immense confidence because it's a live session. So, what does it say? Two countries play a crucial or vital or important role when it comes to pharma industry or when it comes to public health globally. What are the two countries? One is Switzerland, the other one, Norway. Norway is a Scandinavian country. Norway, Sweden, Finland, these are known as Scandinavian countries. And here, Switzerland and Norway, which are prominent members. Prominent means what? Very important. They host means what? They have many companies related to the pharma industry, host several of the pharmaceutical, not only that, biotechnology companies that are responsible for several of the drugs and therapeutics that underpin, support healthcare globally. An important sentence: the nature of the pharma industry. Now he talks about what goes with the pharma industry. In a nutshell, I'll provide the background information. It's all about drugs, pharma industry, coming up with new drugs. To come up with a new drug, the company has to spend a lot of time. They have to invest on research and development, R&D. They have to go in for trials and clinical trials, all that. And it takes a lot of time. They have to invest a lot of money. Once they invest money, they invest time, and they come up with a particular drug, obviously they want to have the exclusive right for some time. They go in for patenting. That's what we call patenting. And they have the intellectual property rights for some time. And here, if it is for a long time, other companies cannot manufacture. Basically, what happens, one particular company comes up with a particular drug. It has IPR, imagine it has patented for 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. For 5 years, other companies cannot manufacture that particular drug. After 5 years, anyone can manufacture. I can manufacture, you can manufacture, but we can have our own branding, brand image, a different label, a different name. But whatever is there in the drug, it is the same. Then it is known as a generic drug. This is all a bit scientific. You have to know have the background, only then you can follow. There's one word here, generic. Anyone can produce. The nature of the pharma industry, it costs much to discover. As I said, it costs a lot. Not only money, time factor. It costs a lot. It costs much to discover a useful, very important. You may wonder, the first letter is a vowel letter. How come a? Why not an? It begins with a vowel letter, but it has a consonantal sound. Based on that, like European city, a useful, effective drug. They have to spend a lot of money and relatively little to make generic copies. Imagine a particular company spends a lot of time and money, and once they may come up with a drug, and after some time, other companies within no time they can copy and produce generic copies of it, with a demand that is far disproportionate to affordability, with demand that is far disproportionate to affordability, means that there is a constant tussle between the inventors and the generic drug companies. There is a dispute between, on the one hand, the inventors, and on the other hand, the generic drug manufacturers. The sentence talks about the problem. What is the problem here? It takes a lot of time and money to invent a drug, that is one thing. And based on that, with demand that is far disproportionate to affordability. Demand and affordability, they have to match, otherwise, it becomes a problem. Means that there is a constant tussle between the inventors and the generic drug companies. They always fight. Patenting. Inventor always prefers patenting. Patenting or an exclusive monopoly for a fixed number of years. As I said, what is patenting? I invent a drug, then I go in for patenting. Means what? For 5 years, no one can manufacture that drug. I have the exclusive right. That's what it means, patenting. Patenting or an exclusive monopoly for a fixed number of years to originators and a reciprocal right by the governments to issue directions for compulsory licensing, thereby selectively breaking such monopolies in the interest of public health, has brokered the peace and sustained the global pharma industry for decades. Now, what happens? Imagine I have the patenting right for 20 years. For 20 years, other companies cannot manufacture. Then that is not good for the public health, globally or locally. Then the government tries to intervene. This talks about the government intervention to issue the licensing to other companies so that the drug reaches many people and it serves a purpose. Otherwise, it is going to be what with one particular industry, and that is not a good thing. Patenting or an exclusive monopoly for a fixed number of years to originators and a reciprocal. For some time, they should have the benefit. Patenting, 5 years, limited time. And a reciprocal right by governments because they are allowing the company to have the monopoly for 5 years, a reciprocal right of the government and a reciprocal right by governments to issue directions for compulsory licensing. After 5 years, they can issue the licensing, thereby selectively breaking such monopolies. When they allow other companies to manufacture, they are breaking the monopoly of a particular company in the interest of public health. Why should they do that? In the interest of the public health, has brokered the peace and sustained the global pharma industry for decades. It has resulted in peace and also sustained the global pharma industry. Sustain, we got yesterday, maintain the pharma industry. Everyone can survive. One industry, the main one, for 5 years exclusive rights. After that, generic drugs, anyone can manufacture, entire pharma industry can survive. But new legal innovations such as data exclusivity continue to inveigle themselves in free trade negotiations. New legal innovations such as data exclusivity. Imagine a particular industry spends time and money on R&D, research and development. They have their data, and that data is exclusive. Obviously, other companies cannot manufacture. That again an issue. New legal innovations such as data exclusivity continue to inveigle themselves in free trade negotiations. Under this provision, all the clinical trial data that concerns the safety and efficacy of a drug generated by the originator firm becomes proprietary and out of bounds for a minimum period of 6 years. Sentence, this editorial is not that easy to comprehend or understand. I told at the very outset what is the reason. You need a bit of background related to IPR, patenting, and pharma industry, drugs, all these things. But in a nutshell, this sentence says based on a particular provision, the clinical trial data that concerns the safety and efficiency of a drug generated by the originator firm becomes proprietary and out of bounds for a minimum of period of 6 years. For 6 years, other industries, other companies cannot manufacture or cannot use that clinical trial data that is exclusive. It belongs to a particular company. Permission to make a generic is possible if a country's regulator can rely on supplied clinical trial data to approve a drug. When is it possible to come up with a generic drug? Permission to make a generic drug is possible if a country's regulator can depend on supplied clinical trial data to make a drug. What is the most important thing? Clinical trial data. If they can depend on supplied clinical trial data, then obviously approve a drug. For this, generic makers usually rely on the originators of published data. So what they do, the originators, the original industry or company that has the drug, invented the drug, may have published or they publish the data, and generic companies, the companies that make generic drugs, they usually depend on the originators' published data. Based on that, they try to come up with a drug. The principle of data exclusivity is present among European countries as well as in agreements involving many developing countries. Data exclusivity is present. What are the places where it is present? One, among European countries, as well as. Today, the focus is more on making you understand the editorial. I'm not focusing on the language aspect. And here it talks about as well as in agreements involving many developing countries. Were it to take effect in India, if it were to take, or were it to take, very important pattern, exam point of view, it could significantly hinder India's drug industry, which is also a major exporter of affordable drugs. If it has to happen in India, then it is going to make a negative impact. Were it to take effect in India, you can also say if it were to take effect in India, it could possibility significantly, importantly block India's drug industry, which is also a major exporter of affordable drugs. India manufactures and exports affordable drugs. That is very important. Indian officials have rejected data exclusivity as a point of negotiations in the FTA, though leaked drafts of the agreement suggest that it is alive. Some people leak the drafts, and based on that, it is still alive. It talks about the stand taken by Indian officials. Indian officials have rejected data exclusivity because data exclusivity, it will be a problem for Indian pharma industries to manufacture generic drugs. However, India's rise up the drug manufacturing chain in the last few decades means that it must invest in an ecosystem that can conduct ethical drug trials and make new molecules and therapeutics from scratch. India has to invest on R&D. The last sentence talks about what India has to do. It must invest in an ecosystem that can conduct ethical drug trials. Drug trials should be ethical and make new molecules and therapeutics from scratch, from the beginning. How does it end? I guess this is the last one. Last but one. The paradigm that drug development will always be expensive and confined to the West need not be permanent. Generally, the drug development is confined to the Western world, but need not be the same all the time. The paradigm that drug development will always be expensive, one problem, and restricted to the West need not be permanent. We can change that, as was seen in the development of several novel technology approaches to developing vaccines in India during the COVID-19 pandemic. We cannot say that it is going to be something that goes with the West all the time. New drug development. At the time of COVID, we saw, especially from Hyderabad, a few companies, Pune, Hyderabad, they could come up with new vaccines. So we can break that monopoly, we can change the existing situation. But as preparation, India must invest substantially, considerably more in fundamental research. The main idea is being reiterated to incubate the local drug industry into the future. They have to develop the local industry, and only then we can expand. That's all about the editorial. I would like to reiterate, I don't know how many of you could follow this editorial, not at all easy. Now try to answer. There are so many words. A unique person, a unique person, a universal rule, a university. Who is this? Okay. Try to answer these questions. What is the primary bone of contention or cause of dispute in the ongoing India European Free Trade Association agreement negotiations? Tariff rates, data exclusivity in the pharmaceutical industry, agricultural subsidies, technology transfer. So, what is the answer here? Maharshi, first one to respond, you got it right. Answer is B. It's all about data exclusivity in the pharmaceutical industry. Question number two. According to the editorial, what role has patenting and compulsory licensing played in global pharmaceutical industry? Two things. One, patenting and compulsory licensing. What role have they played? Hindered innovation, maintained a balance between inventions and generic drug companies, increased the drug prices, limited access to affordable drugs. This is also, you got to be a little careful. You have to read meticulously. Only then you can answer. Let us see whether you're going to get it or not. Question number two. 2D. I don't think so. According to the editorial, what role has patenting and compulsory licensing played in the global pharmaceutical industry? Answer is B. No problem, once or twice it may go wrong. Maintained a balance between inventors, and generic drug companies. On the one hand, patenting. On the other hand, compulsory licensing. Because of these two dimensions, it has resulted in a balance between inventors and generic drug companies. B is the answer. Very good. Question number three. What is the significance of data exclusivity in the context of the pharmaceutical industry? Significance of data exclusivity. It promotes transparency in drug development. It ensures generic drug companies have equal access to clinical trial data. It makes clinical trial data proprietary for a specific period. It facilitates collaboration between pharmaceutical companies. This also you have to read very carefully. These are not easy to answer, but see, always remember, easy editorials, I see more number of students. And an editorial like this, a tough one, the number comes down. In fact, it should be the other way. Whenever you come across a tough editorial, you're raising your standards. I always tell students, don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. An editorial like this, it's a challenge. And you challenge that limit, raise your standards. It makes clinical trial data proprietary for a specific period. Answer is not B. It ensures generic drug companies have equal access to clinical trial data. No. Proprietary for a specific period. Answer is C. C is the answer. I think one student has got it right. Question number four. How has India's drug industry been positioned in the global market according to the editorial? India's drug industry has been, how has it been positioned? As a major importer of pharmaceuticals, as a minor player with limited exports, as a major exporter of affordable drugs, clearly mentioned in the passage. Explicit information. As a major exporter of affordable drugs. India manufactures affordable drugs and it exports affordable drugs. No one has responded. Good. C is the answer. What does the editorial suggest India should invest in to ensure the growth of its drug industry in the future? India must invest where? Increase the tariffs on pharmaceutical imports, more reliance on Western drug development processes, fundamental research, and an ecosystem for ethical drug trials. Same wording, easy to answer. Fundamental. India must invest in fundamental research and an ecosystem that for ethical drug trials. C is the answer. Very good. Yesterday we got 16 words. Try to answer these. Write the part of speech, write the meaning, the key word. You don't have to write the complete meaning, but part of speech very important, the key word very important. What is the first one over here? Strike down. Strike down means what? No one has answered the first one. Yesterday it started with strike down. The Supreme Court struck down. Please mention the word number. Only then I can respond. It is a phrasal verb, very good. But what is the meaning? What is the meaning of that? Cancel. To make something null and void. That those words you have to remember. Verdict. Here it is a phrasal verb. Here it is a noun. Verdict. We also use the word judgment. Verdict, judgment, one and the same. Repeal. Yes, very good. Judgment. That is true. Go to the third one. Anonymous. Part of speech, adjective. Anonymous caller. What does it mean? Unidentified. Very good. Please write the part of speech. Part of speech is very important. I appreciate your response. From your point of view, it's always better to write the part of speech. Part of speech is very important from the exam point of view. Unknown, unidentified. Wonderful. Undermine, part of speech, verb. What does it mean? Undermine something. Suspicious, not exactly, need not be. Possibility is there. Undermine something, a system or a particular organization should not take so long. The lag time is more today. Weaken, exactly. Slowly destroy or weaken someone or something, usually a system. Quid pro quo, part of speech, noun. Put down for what? Agreement between two parties for mutual benefit. Exactly. Exchange of goods or services. Malaise is a noun. Part of speech, noun. Good. Go to the next one. A feeling that you are not doing well or a feeling that you are ill, one meaning. Another meaning, a problem in the society. We use this word. Something is not right in the society. Manifestly, obviously, adverb. Manifestly. Ill, that one word is enough. That means you know the meaning. To feel ill. Very good. Reshma Muhammad. Vijay Kumar. Key word is enough. Go to the next one. Manifestly. Manifestly means what? Part of speech adverb. Yes, illness. You can say that also. Evidently. Manifestly, obviously, evidently, something that goes without saying. Arbitrary, part of speech, adjective. Arbitrary decision. All these are important words you got to remember. Yes, obviously, evidently. Arbitrary means what? Based on reasoning or based on whims and fancies? Part of speech, adjective. Based on reasoning, not based on reasoning. It's opposite. Random choice based on whims and fancies, not based on reasoning. Cap can be a noun, can be a verb. But based on the editorial, it is a verb. Random, a whim. Yes, Vinay Kumar. Very good. Write the part of speech. Cap, usually a cap, noun, but based on the editorial, a verb means what? It goes with money matters, amount, expenditure. Good. Who is this? Kids laugh. Verb to limit. Perfect. That is enough. Curb. Curb is also a verb. When it comes to usage, English, when you learn a particular word, you have to learn usage as well. That is important. Curb also means the same. Restrict, limit. But what is the difference? This goes with restrict something that is unwanted, restrict something, limit something that is unwanted. Then we use the word curb. Antecedents, part of speech, noun. Antecedent, singular. Antecedents, plural. Ante, I gave the prefix yesterday. Ante, ante means a before. Antecedents, something that happened before or before something, something that precedes. Please have a look at the next one. Have you answered the next one? Expedite. Expedite is a verb, an important word. Means what? To speed up. Yes, that is true. Abridge. Abridge is also a verb. It's a regular verb. Expedited, regular verb. Speed up. Abridged, regular verb. Means what? Shorten. That's good. You know the meaning. Shorten, to make something brief. Veil can be a noun, can be a verb, but based on the editorial, noun. What does it mean? Veil. It has two different meanings. One goes with everyday English. Women, they cover the face, that is known as veil. But in the context of the editorial, something that hides or disguises. Deploy is also a verb. Deploy. It goes with police, soldiers. Whenever there is a problem in a particular city, the police are deployed. The soldiers are deployed to make them be in position to handle any eventuality. Ah, yes, hide is the right word. Excuse me. What is the last word? Interim, part of speech adjective. What does it mean? One word that if you mention that, you know, temporary, that is a word you have to remember. Interim orders, temporary, for the time being, till we find the permanent solution. That's all for today, and all the words are very important. Tomorrow there is no editorial session because the Hindu does not publish an editorial on Sundays. I will see you guys on Monday. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. Thank you very much.